might hold the breath for a second and then let it out very slowly. And you keep doing this super slowly, keeping your breathing slow and deep. This will help the fear stay low. It will stop the fear from becoming too big. You can also stretch your body. Remember, one of the things that happens, your muscles get tight. So stretch. As you're breathing very slowly, you can stretch your legs, stretch your back, stretch your arms. You could do a little yoga. So again, you're working on your body first. It's often best to focus on the body first. Now, there is also a mental part of fear, as we discussed. Your mind creates terrible images. You imagine yourself failing or getting hurt or something terrible happening. So while you're breathing and being calm, you want to make positive images in your mind, positive movies, so you actually see yourself succeeding. So as you're breathing very deeply, maybe stretching a little bit, at the same time, in your mind, you might close your eyes and see yourself succeeding. See a big picture in your mind of success. If it's public speaking, see yourself doing a great job. See the audience smiling and enjoying your talk and clapping for you. Yay! As you breathe slowly and deeply. Now, will this work completely the very first time? Probably not. This is something you have to practice again and again and again. You get it to become a habit. So even when you're practicing for a speech, before a speech, you could do this, several days before. Start to practice deep breathings, practice seeing your success, and then practice getting yourself excited. You could use both techniques. Keep yourself calm, calm, calm. This is what I do now, by the way, before a big event, like 3,000 people. I stay calm most of the time. So for 1 hour, 30 minutes before the speech, before the event, before I go on stage, I stay very calm. I just relax. I keep myself very relaxed. And then about 10 minutes before, maybe even 5 minutes before, I start jumping and playing music and getting excited and smiling. And again, thinking of great positive thoughts, imagining the audience smiling and laughing and clapping and having a good time. So that's how I do it. You can choose, play with these things. But the point is, you must practice. I had to do this many, many times to overcome that fear. And that's the final technique, which is just repetition. Facing that fear again and again will make it slowly get less. I mean, the best and easiest way to overcome fear of public speaking, for example, is to simply do it a lot. And each time you do it, it becomes less scary. And when you use these techniques, it happens much faster. You can use this technique for any scary situation, anything that is fearful. So now it's time for our Twitter questions, which is my favorite part of the show. That's where you can ask me questions and I'll answer them here live. And my Twitter account is twitter.com/AJHoge. That's AJHOGE. I like the Twitter questions because they're interactive. I like to hear from you. I like to hear your thoughts. So you can also put your comments or your questions, and let's focus mostly on this topic of fear and confidence today. All right, let's go to Twitter. Well, Charlie in France says sometimes alcohol is the answer. So, that reminds me, when I was in my master's program, learning to be an English teacher, learning to be a better English teacher, I remember that I found a research study about this. Someone actually did a study about this where they had two groups and they studied their language ability. And then they gave one group some alcohol. They had them drink a beer or something, and then they tested their English speaking ability again. Then they gave the same group another beer, and then another beer, and they kept giving them more and more. The other group did not drink. And what they found was that there was an actual point where the language ability got better. It was about 2 drinks. After 2 drinks, the people became drunk, and their English level got worse. But with 2 drinks, they actually spoke better English than the non-drinking group. And they spoke better English than before they started drinking. So I'm not telling you to drink necessarily, but it is helpful to help people relax. It might be something you could do if you are a drinker. Just limit your drinking. Don't do too much, because when you become drunk, it actually becomes worse and you annoy people. So, but it's not so good to depend on alcohol, obviously, because you'll be in many situations in life where you need to speak English and you're not drinking. So don't depend on it. Il Maestro has a comment. He says, hey, Jay, I already know these techniques, but the problem is I forget about them when stress starts to come. What do I have to do? Great. And this is exactly right. When the stress starts coming, your brain doesn't think so well, right? This is what happens. This part of your brain, the higher part of your brain, begins to stop working. And that's why you forget about things and you cannot function normally. So to fight against that, you have to practice it. This is why I say you must practice this before the stressful situation. If you have a speech on Friday next week and you know you're going to be nervous, you need to start practicing right now, every day, practicing these techniques every single day, for 1 week or more, so that when the stress comes, you've practiced it, it's a habit, and then you will remember to use these things. So you can't rely on doing this when the situation is very stressful. You can't think well when that happens. That's why you must train yourself. This is training. You've got to train yourself before the event happens. Our guest didn't make it today, and probably a Google Hangouts problem, but hopefully we'll get him on the show in the future. Richard Grannon was going to be on the show. He's a self-defense instructor. And so he teaches people how to deal with fear in a very, very scary situation. Someone's trying to hurt you. Possibly someone's trying to kill you. Of course, in that situation, you will fear that person tremendously. You will feel intense emotion, right? And if you don't train before that, if you don't practice how to deal with that, probably what happens is when someone attacks you, you're going to just freeze, you'll do nothing. Or you'll just, you'll do this, you'll fall down and they'll hurt you or kill you. So training is necessary. And for a very extreme situation like someone trying to hurt you or kill you, you must train to deal with that super strong fear. So that's why, like when I talk about these techniques, it's not just something you use before you give a speech or before you want to talk. You must practice it many days before so it becomes a habit. Then you'll remember to do it when the stress comes. Julia, our superstar member in Italy, says, I have a presentation on Saturday and your show comes at the perfect time. I will apply all of your suggestions except for the drinking. Okay, good. Be sure also, Julia, is again, practice it as much as you can. Another thing, practice it on the day of your speech. If you have a speech at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then when you wake up in the morning, practice these techniques several times. Practice them when you first wake up. Practice them at 11. Practice them at 12. Practice them at 1 o'clock. And then do them just before the speech. So the day of the event, whatever it is, practice, practice, practice. Very important. That's how you train your mind to do this under stress. Charlie has another good point, Charlie from France. It's also a good idea to use anchors. And I've discussed this idea of anchors. It's an NLP term. NLP is a kind of psychological training. And an anchor is basically, it's something you do again and again, and you connect it to a feeling. For example, you make yourself really excited. Yeah. And you're feeling fantastic. And then when you feel super great, you do some kind of special movement. I do this. Like I use my fist. It's kind of like a Tiger Woods movement. Like this. Every time I feel strong and great, I do that movement. And by doing this again and again, what I did is I connected these two things in my brain, in my mind. This special movement, this special gesture, and the feeling of being excited and happy. After doing this many, many times, now what happens, if I do that special movement like this, I will start to feel happier and excited and more excited. So that you can actually, first you get excited and you do the movement, but once you do it many times, then you can do the movement and it will make you feel excited. That's an anchor. Very cool. That's another thing you can do when you're practicing the technique. Do a different movement for feeling calm and for feeling excited. Don't use the same one because you'll confuse your brain. So you do the calm exercises, relaxing, deep breathing. You might do one special movement with your hands or something. Maybe like put them together like you're meditating. And then when you get yourself to feel very excited and energetic, you do another kind of movement. So then whenever you want to feel calm, you do the meditation movement with your hands. And when you want to feel excited, you do your excited movement. It's very effective. Very good. Okay, our final Twitter question before we finish. Actually, two. One, Max Galtieri asked, what about Richard Grannon? So he was not able to join my Google Hangout. We're using a program called Google Hangouts for the show, and he just could not join. I'm not sure what happened. So I'll email him and we'll figure out, I don't know, he may have gotten the time wrong because he's in London, or he may have had a problem connecting with Google Hangouts. So not sure what happened, but we'll try to get him back on the show. Okay, our last question or comment from Maya Glasher says, if I imagine the audience are happy about my speech and then I see the opposite, will it disappoint me? How to deal with that? Excellent question. And that's really a bigger question, which is more about public speaking technique. I would say don't worry about it too much right now. You need to deal with that. A good public speaker, when they see the audience is not reacting well, they have to adjust. They have to make a change. And this has happened to me. It's happened to me several times. Now, here's the good news about this. Most of the fear is at the beginning. I find if you can deal with the fear when you start, just before you begin the speech and then when you walk out in the first minute, if you're feeling calm during that time, you're usually going to be okay for the rest of the time. You might feel a little bit of fear if you look and the audience is looking unhappy or something. But if you use these techniques before, if you start with strong confidence, you'll be okay. Why? Because your higher brain will still be working. So then you can solve problems. You look at the audience, you realize they look tired, for example. Your higher brain's still working because you're not terrified. So you can think, oh, they seem tired. I need to be more energetic so that they wake up. Or maybe I'll ask them to stand up and stretch a little bit. Or they look bored, so I need to tell an exciting story. You'll be able to solve the problems because your brain will still be working, your higher brain. The problem is when you start the speech feeling terrified, your higher brain's not working very well. So then if a problem happens, like the audience doesn't look like they're enjoying it, or they look bored or something, you can't solve the problems because you're so fearful and you're having these physical reactions and your higher brain's not working well, then you can't think well. And it's hard to solve problems quickly in that kind of situation. So that's why it's so important to start in a strong and confident way that will keep your higher brain working, and then you will be able to solve these challenges that come more easily.